everybody, it's Allison. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today we're going to be making some fun cards, some tunnel cards, something that I haven't done since last year. So these are really cute and really fun to make. So here are the two cards that I'm going to be sharing today. And they're using two new collections from Spellbinders. So we're going to start with the polar bear card right here. And I just love this. Now we're going to start with the background for this tunnel card. This is the Snowfall Shimmer BetterPress plate. And I have some white foil. Now I shared this plate in a previous video where I showed how you can heat emboss and then use magicals, shimmer powders, for a really cool background. But I'm foiling today, obviously, and I have to say I still really love foiling with my BetterPress plates, especially when it has really fine lines like this one does. So I'm putting the plate onto the glimmer machine and pressing the start button or the timer button. And of course it would help if I put the plates on, so here they are. And by the way, I always have some copy paper shims in between these two plates. No reason. I've just always done that. The only time I change this is if something doesn't foil well, but I honestly don't remember the last time that happened. I've had my glimmer machine for, maybe 4 years, and it's still going strong. So I'm running this through my die cutting machine, and now it's back, and we're going to see what we got. So I have my little cooling pad right here, and I know it looks like I'm burning my hands, but I'm kind of used to how to get these off without hurting myself. So here's the big reveal, and I got just a gorgeous foiling. I know it's kind of hard to see because this is light blue paper, but it is really gorgeous and just a perfect foiling. So I'm trying to turn it in the light so you can see it. Now here's the negative piece, and you can use a solid foil plate to do reverse foiling or do something else with this. I might do something. Maybe you'll see that in the next month or so. Maybe I'll figure out something to do with that. Now here are all the pieces for assembling the tunnel card. I cut that back piece to just under 4 1/4 by 6 inches. I have two pieces that are 4 3/4 by 6 inches. And then the main piece here is 10 1/2 inches by 6 inches. And I'm going to start by scoring this big piece. Now I'm going to pause this quickly so that I can just mention that I'm going to be using the same measurements that I came up with in a previous video where I made a bunch of tunnel cards. They were my first tunnel cards, and it was at the end of that video where I came up with these measurements. I'll link to that video at the end of this one because there were a lot of fun cards in that video. All right, so let's get to scoring this piece. My first score line is going to be at 3/4 inch. And this is my little mini score buddy. And then I'm going to score at 5 inches. And then 5 3/4. Now I'm going to turn this over, not over, but flip it. And I'm going to score at 1/2 inch. So all my score lines are on the same side of this paper. I just flipped it to do that 1/2 inch score line. Now I'm flipping it over so I can score these, or reinforce these score lines rather. And I'm using my bone folder to do that. If you don't have a good bone folder, I highly suggest you get one, especially if you want to make cards like this. I use this on every card, even just to make my card bases. All right, so there is the main piece that's going to form the box for the tunnel. Now this is the Heartfelt Thanks and Scallops die set. I'm picking dies now to create the openings. And I'm cutting the opening on the side, which has that 3/4 inch flap at the end. Remember, one end I scored at 1/2 inch and one end I scored at 3/4 inch. Now this die here is from the nested postage labels set. It's a stitched die. And this is just a plain die that I just grabbed from this set, the Fluted Classic Rectangles, which I'm pretty sure is retired. Pick whatever dies you have that nest. You can just use a nesting rectangle set or an arched set, which I've used before. You'll see why I picked these kind of little specialty shaped dies. And right now I'm just, centering this guy on the front of this. Again, the front being the side that has that 3/4 inch flap next to it. So I used my T-square ruler to make sure that die was on there straight, and I took it to my die cutting machine. And here's this piece that I'm going to set aside to use on another card. It will not go to waste, which is great. All right, so here is the front opening of the tunnel card. Now here is one of the insert pieces, and I'm scoring at 1/4 inch on this side, and I'm going to turn it around and score at 1/4 inch. So basically I have a 1/4 inch score line on each side. All right, now this guy I'm going to do the same thing because these are the same size, 4 3/4 by 6. So because I scored 1/4 inch on each side, the finished size of this is 4 1/4 by 6. All right, so what I need to do now is make an opening on this red piece. So I'm lining it up with the opening of the main white piece. So that 4 1/4 inch measurement is what I'm lining up. And I'm just going to tape this red piece to the white piece to keep it in place. And I'm going to flip it over, and now I can center my stitched die in that opening. And I'm just eyeballing it, but I will come in with my T-square ruler just to make sure it's on there nice and straight. And I'll untape the back and then use those pieces to secure it down. And then I can send that through my die cutting machine. Okay, so here is the next opening. And again, this red stitched rectangle that I'm left with, I'm going to put aside and use with this scalloped piece. All right, so here's what we have so far. Make sure it looks good and it's nice and lined up. Okay, now I need to make an opening on that white insert. So because these are the same size, I'm just lining them up and taping them to each other so that I can center this little rectangle die. All right, so that's nice and centered. So I will send that white piece through, and there it is. So now I'm just testing this, and everything is lined up really great. It's just really easy to do. Now I have this really thin score tape, and I'm putting it on these score lines. So this is the front of each of these pieces, the front part of the score lines. And I'll use my bone folder to just secure that tape on there. Now with the opening of the main piece on the right-hand side, I'm going to line the back panel. Remember, the white panel is going to be my back panel. And I'm lining the side up with this first score line of the large blue piece. And I'm making sure that that blue piece can fold easily. I don't want that white piece to go over that score line. When I'm certain that it's lined up, I can pull that release tape off and secure it. And I'm also making sure that the white piece is lined up, on the bottom and top of the card. All right, so now I have my front insert, which is the red insert, and now I can just line it up against the white piece. And so this is the back of the red insert. And once I know that it's lined up, I can pull this release tape off. And this is how I do it. I just find it easier to hold this in place and make sure that it doesn't move, that everything's lined up. And I just find it easiest to do it this way. All right, so here's what we have. Now I'm going to turn it around. Okay, so now my opening's on the left and my 1/2 inch flap is on the right. So when you fold these over, because these two score lines of the inserts are 1/4 inch each, you see how that 1/2 inch flap covers that perfectly. Now before I close that up, I'm going to make sure that I put my background piece in here. And that's why I made this a little less than 4 1/4 inches wide, because remember that the space between all these score lines is 4 1/4 inches. So this background piece just needs to fit within those score lines, and that's why I made it a little less than 4 1/4 inches. Now I can go ahead and pull the release tape off, and this 1/2 inch flap is going to cover those two pieces that are 1/4 inch score lines. All right, now let's look at what we have. The red piece is a little bowed towards the front. That's okay. It doesn't affect the functionality of this. It still looks great from the front, but I'm going to try something different on the next card. So we'll see what I do with that. But for now, let's dress up this tunnel card. These are the North Pole sentiments. This set is from the North Pole Friends collection from Spellbinders and Simon Hurley. And there are 3 shorter sentiments, which I had previously made, and then there are 3 longer ones, including Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and Santa's Workshop. And I just think this is darling. So I have the big pole here and just trying to figure out how I want to situate these. And I'm going to go ahead and attach the pole first. And this is going to go on the white layer, the back layer, not the very back layer, the back insert. And you just want to make sure you don't put glue on any part of that pole that's going to touch the background. You just put glue on the part that's going to, attach to the white border. Now, when I'm putting these signs in that I had previously made, some of the letters are kind of hidden, and that's because I had centered those sentiments. Now let me show you how these sentiments work. There are 3 dies for this directional sign, 3 different shapes. And I'm picking the arrow one, and I'm going to use this for the North Pole. So whereas before, when I first made them, I centered it just like that, I'm going to push this to the left because part of the sign is going to be hidden by the borders of my card, my tunnel card. So pushing the sentiment a little further to the left, and here's, by the way, how you assemble these. Pushing it a little bit to the left is going to help you see the words better. And I also decided I just needed 2 signs because you can see that polar bear there is going to take up quite a bit of space here. So I have 2 signs above him. And so here are the polar bear pals. There are 3 polar bears in here. I'm going to use 2 of them on this card. And this guy has this little light necklace to put around his neck. And here's the finished card. So it fits in a 5x7 envelope. And again, just always looking at the spacing and see how that works. So I can try to figure out how to make things better every time. The Merry Christmas is one of those directional signs. I just used one of the dies for that sentiment. Now the little topper for the pole, I decided to change out. I cut a black glossy cardstock piece for this, and then I found a little circle. This is from a Hero Arts nesting circle set, and I just cut a red circle, and I'm going to put that on top of the black base just to give it my own unique touch. And this is the final card, and look at that tiny little polar bear on the bottom. He is so cute, and I love how this turned out. All right, now I took the cutout pieces from the tunnel card and used them for the layers on this card. You'll see the blue scalloped piece and the red stitched piece, and even that white rectangle I stamped with the buffalo plaid press plate, and I did add a very small black border around that piece, but this was a great way to make sure that those pieces didn't go to waste. And look at that adorable Santa. This is from the Clauses die set, which is also part of this North Pole Friends collection. There's also a Mrs. Claus in that collection, and she has a little tray of cookies, so super cute. All right, this next card features the new Say Cheese Classic Pooh Birthday Collection. And this right here is the birthday accessories set. So there are banners, there's a cupcake, a cake, some presents, streamers, just all kinds of fun stuff. And this is the Pooh and Piglet set, which came out in January with the original Classic Pooh collection. This is the new Classic Pooh Birthday Numbers 3D embossing folder, and because it's 3D, you get this amazing dimension. And I'm just going to ink this up with some Distress Oxides, and I'll put the colors at the top. But I just want to mention, have you guys seen the new Distress Oxide mini cubes? I think it was announced this past weekend, and I have to say I was so surprised because I thought for years Ranger has been saying that they couldn't fit this formulation into a cube size. So I think it's pretty exciting news, especially for people who were maybe hesitant to buy oxides because they were full-size pads. So if you've never tried oxides, try getting a little set of the mini cubes. I love my oxides. All right, now here's the base for my tunnel card, and same as before, this sheet is 10.5 by 6 inches. And I use the same exact measurements for my score lines, and here I'm just reinforcing those lines with my bone folder. So here is the main part of the tunnel. Now here's one of the inside pieces, and same as before, this is 4 3/4 by 6. I'm scoring at 1/4 inches, but instead of flipping this and scoring at 1/4 inches, I'm just going to score it at 4.5 inches. Assuming your paper is exactly 4 3/4, you should end up with 1/4 inch on each side. So now I'm just going to reinforce these folds. And I already cut a rectangle out of that front piece. And I'm going to do the same thing as before, where I line this piece up with the opening of the big piece so that I can center a die in the opening. I'm still using that Heartfelt Thanks set, and this time I'm using the smallest scallop die from that set. And so here's what we have. And I'm just testing this blue insert. There's still a little bit of bowing. So I'm going to try something different with my second insert. So here is that second insert. Now this piece I cut just shy of 4 3/4 inches wide. I'm going to bring this closer. Hopefully you can see it's not quite 4 3/4. And I'm still going to score at 1/4 inch. And this time I am going to flip it and then score at 1/4 inch again. So now the space in between those score lines is going to be less than 4 1/4 inches because the overall width was less than 4 3/4 inches. All right, now just like before, I'm lining up this back piece with the score line of the big piece. I'm going to flip that over and bring in this light blue piece. I'm going to butt that up right against the white insert. And as soon as I see that everything's lined up perfectly, I can pull that release tape off. All right, so let's see what we have. You can see the white piece is a little less bowed than the blue one. So maybe the next tunnel card that I do, I'll try this with both pieces. I am just always striving for that perfect tunnel card, which I know is completely ridiculous. All right, so before, my 1/2 inch measurement for the side perfectly covered up those 2 1/4 inch score lines. But because I adjusted the width of that white insert, I'll have to remember to increase that 1/2 inch measurement next time. But really, it's fine because the fact that it doesn't completely cover these doesn't matter because that that larger side, the 3/4 inch side, that's what closes everything up anyway. So it's all good. Now here I go, pulling the release tape off and closing it up. And maybe some of you have already noticed, what did Allison do wrong? Of course, look what I forgot. I forgot to glue in the back piece, but that's okay. I can still slide it in there. Remember, this piece is less than 4¼ inches wide. So I'm just going to put glue on it and slide it in there. Now, it would have been easier, of course, if this wasn't embossed, because you don't want to press too hard on the embossed panel or you'll flatten some of the embossed detail. And it worked out fine. All right, now for my sentiment, this is from a Very Happy Birthday Sentiments. These are press plates, and I hot foiled it onto black cardstock. And here's the press plate with the matching die. It cuts out all of them at once. Now here are the fun little banners that I made, or the flags. I doubled them up onto black cardstock just to give them stability. And I'm going to go ahead and close up the entire tunnel card before I add my details. Now, sometimes it's easier to add your little details before you close things up, but I decided to just close it up. Now, here's that wider score tape that I have to enclose this long end. Or wide end, I should say. And there's the tunnel. And here are these flags, and I'm just kind of trying to figure out how they're going to go. So I'm going to put this back one on first. This is going to go onto that back white layer, that back white insert. And I'm being careful not to put glue on any part of this that is not going to be attaching to the sides, because if I were to press down and there's glue on the back of these, it would glue down to that back panel. And obviously you don't want to do that. So I'm not going to lie, this is kind of awkward trying to get those secured to the sides. But, you know, I got it to work. And that's, it really helped that I had doubled up these pennants or flags, whatever you want to call these, because they just were more stable to work with. And here they are. They're nice and secure. And there's Pooh. Isn't he adorable? And he's going to be holding this cupcake with a candle on it. And here's Piglet. He has a little hat and a little present that he's holding. And I was a little worried about him. I'm attaching him just to the bottom of this white insert. So he's just attached to this little bottom area. I did kind of beef him up, so he's doubled up. I don't know. I was a little worried that he'd be too heavy, but I think it helped that he was a little more plump. He's a plump little piglet. All right, so here we go. Always looking at the top, and you can see the white one is looking pretty good. So next time I make a tunnel card, we'll see. Maybe one day we'll end up with the perfect measurement, which I'm sure, other people already know. But me, I like to experiment. So, by the way, the 6-inch height of these tunnel cards, that's just something I picked because this fits into a 5x7 envelope. I could make it 7 inches high, but I think it would just look way too thin and tall. And these measurements just work out for me. So look at how cute this is. I just think it's so festive and adorable. All right, now this card I could not include in this video, but this is the Christmas rocking chair. And I actually was going to make a tunnel card out of this, but decided that I was going to make this peekaboo card. And it was mainly because this gorgeous rocking chair is quite large. So there was just no way to fit this scene with the window on the tunnel card measurements that I have. So I'm hoping to have a separate video showing how I made this card, but I have so many cards that I need to make, and it's hard taking time to make the videos as well. So just in case I don't get a video out anytime soon with this card, I wanted to show it to you because I do love it. I think it's really beautiful. All right, that is it for me today. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. I will see you next time, maybe with the rocking chair. See you later. Bye.